Hello everyone, this is Yvonne from Yvonne Ceramics. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make these cute ceramic flower and ceramic vase. You can see here, there's these flowers and the vase. So all the components from the flowers to the vase are slip cast, but you could easily make your own and with hand building. And then the flowers are sitting on high fire wire. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more videos each week. So let's start with talking about the molds that I have. This one is all flowers, so very tiny small flowers. This one's all leaves, and this one there's two jugs here, and I'm going to make the flower and leaves and then put them into the jug, and so it's kind of like a set of mini vase with the flowers. And so I have my slip trailing bulb here. I'm just going to fill it with some of my slip. So I am using Platzman 370 casting slip. It is also the same body that I use for throwing and hand building. It is mid-fire, very smooth, white stoneware clay. I'm using this bulb because the whole of these mold, I'll zoom in here so we can see better. So the holes here, they are very small, and I find it really hard to pour, so that's why I am using the small bulb to help me. And these are very small tiny flowers, so it doesn't require a lot of clay. So I know that we are in the midst of Christmas season, and I have already restocked my shelf makers at Metrotown for Christmas stuff. Some people, they just like to shop early, so I usually like to restock early, like in November. So as soon as Halloween's finished, I like to do my restock. So here, this one is just, I filled too much clay. I'm just gonna clean this up and then move my rubber band here so I can keep filling on this side. So yeah, I like to restock my shelf, especially for the Christmas season early in November. I don't know what everyone does, but that's just what I found is quite helpful to restock early. So these are the first one I have slipped, and as you can see, the clay has already gone down. So I'm just gonna do it, just refill it one more time, because these are just small flowers. I don't have to do it too many times. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. And we are pretty cold these days, so it actually dries quite quickly over here. So I'm just gonna let it sit aside for a bit, and I'll start with the leaf mold now. So because I know the economy is not doing so great, and people are really watching what they are buying and how they spend their money, so it also affects how I make my stuff as well. So in the past, I would make some bigger items to sell, of course, it would sell for more, but then with the current sales that I have been watching for the past few months, the bigger or higher price ticket item are not selling. that well, so I'm only making small items. Price it a little bit lower, but at the same time need to make sure that it covers rent and the material costs. So it's a fine balance when you have to pay rent. Okay, so my leaves, flowers are all good. Now let's go on to the jugs. So because the holes are bigger, I can just use my measuring cup to pour my slip in. So this is just cheap plastic measuring cup I got from the dollar store. Sometimes I like to get my stuff from the thrift store because it's cheaper there. And there's some really good stuff there too. So I'm just gonna let this sit aside. So I finished casting and opened the mold. This is what the flower one looks like. And that's the leaf one. I haven't opened the jug yet because it's still wet. So in order to take out the flower mold, it's kind of hard because if you see how thin it is, how close it is to the mold, I can't really just peel it off. So what I usually do is I have a wooden stick here and I would just push it down like that along the sides of the pour spout. Just keep pushing it and then it will pop out from the other side. And if it doesn't pop out yet, you can just check. Yeah, it's coming off nicely. Just have to keep pushing it to push it out. There. So that's the flower mold. And I'll have to trim this part off as well. So I'll just keep going and keep pushing these out. It is a bit time consuming, but pottery is something that takes time. Some people think that slip casting is a cheating way or doesn't take as much time, but it does take time as well as flowing or hand building. So I just have to keep checking to make sure it is coming along. If I'm having trouble, I can try another one first. Yep, this one's off. And sometimes like there's some really small one that I'm having trouble even pushing my tool in. That's why I love using this tool. This tool is very small and it doesn't, and it's also a wooden tool, so it doesn't destroy or scrape or scratch the side of my pour hole. And I can clean it up as well. So I finished trimming the flowers and the leaves, and that's what they look like on the back. So I tried to seal up the hole on the back so it looks smooth. Okay, so that's the leaves and the flowers. It is already leather hard, so I need to move quite quickly right now because I want to insert the high fire wire on the leaves and the flowers. So I'm planning on doing about 3 leaves and 4 flowers for each bouquet. I've got 2 different thickness for or different gauges for wires. These are both high fire wire, means they can go into the kiln. For the bigger flowers and leaves, I'll use the thicker wire. For the smaller one, I'll use the thinner wires. So for example, for this one here, I'll use the thicker wires. I want to measure about this much goes into the leaf and then about this much sticking out. So about here. And this is just a wire cutter that you can get from hardware stores like Home Depot. So I am going to just insert this in here. Yeah, you can see that sometimes when you insert, it'll crack because the clay is starting to get a bit dry. So I can just wet a little bit of clay bits here from the trimmings and then just patch it up right here. Like so. And also on the back as well. I think if I insert a thinner gauge wire, it would be better, but then at the same time I'm worried that with a thinner gauge wire it will not support the weight of the leaf, so that's why I chose the thicker one. Okay, so that's one. Now this time let's try a thinner gauge wire. So I want to insert this much in, this much sticking out. You can get these wires at any of the pottery store. I've also seen some available on Amazon as well, but I haven't tested those out yet. So I'm not sure if those actually will work in the kiln. Okay, so you can kind of see the wire here. So I think I'm gonna do the same thing and patch it up. Especially here, I don't want this part to crack. So I'm just going to patch it up. Okay, so that's good. That's one leaf. At the same time now, I want to get a little bit of water on my finger and just smooth out the back of the sleeve, because that's where the pour spout is. Just smoothing it out so it looks nicer on the back side too. Okay, now let's do a flower now. So I've got the bigger flower, smaller ones. I'm gonna do the smaller one first. So I'm using a thinner gauge wire. So I think what I'm gonna do a little bit like an L shape here on the wire. And I'm gonna insert it like so. Like that. Yeah. Because if you see the flower, it's not a lot of depth here. So if I did not bend the wire, the wire will only go through like that much in the clay. Whereas if I bend an L shape, then there'll be more wire into the clay. Okay. Let's do another one. This one here is again very thin, so I'm going to bend a little L shape here. Oops. So the flower broke. And sometimes that happens because, like I said, these are very delicate, and then it's already leather hard, so that's why it's very fragile. So this one can go back into the reclaim bucket. Let's try another one. I think this one can do the thinner wire. that. Okay, next I've got a bigger flower, so I need to have a thicker wire. I think because this one, the depth is a little bit more than the other ones, I'm just gonna do straight. Like that. This one is a little bit tricky because it's a bigger leaf, but I'm afraid the thicker wire won't go through on this one. So I'm going to risk it and do a thinner wire. We'll see what happens. So if I do that, I'm going to bend the wire a little bit like that. And then I'm going to try to insert this without breaking it. Okay, that's as far as it will go. Okay, so I did a poke through here, so I will have to patch it with a little bit of clay. Like so. And at this time, I'm going to get a little bit of water and smooth out the back as well. Okay, and that's it for the flowers. I'm going to now quickly move on to doing this flower and the rest of the flowers and leaves. So I finally finished putting all the wire in the leaves and flowers. Next, I'm going to put some colors on. So here I have colored slip. It's the same clay that I use for slip casting, but I just put in some mason stain in it. So this one is 5% of the forest green mason stain. It is a little bit thicker, on the thicker side, so I'm going to just stir it up a bit. So the reason why I am using mason stain or color slip to paint instead glaze or underglaze is because sometimes even with underglaze, it can get stuck on the kiln shelf. So I am using slip, basically is colored clay. I'm just going to paint it, especially on the bottom of the leaf, so when it goes on to the kiln, it can just stay directly onto the kiln shelf without sticking. And since it is the same clay as the slip castings clay that I have, so I don't have to worry about shrinkage. So I'm just going to paint it on like so. Make sure I get to the sides as well and the edge here. And so with color slip, I'm just going, because of how dark, how saturated the color is, I'm just going to do one coat of this on the leaf, and that's how it looks. And I'm just gonna rest it. I think I'm gonna use this and put this here. I'm going to rest it like that because it's still a little bit tacky and it's not dry yet. So I've got to, this one is with 5% of the mason stain, and then this one is 1%. So that's why you see the different color here. So with the leaves, I am going to do different colored leaves so that I get a variation. And so I'm just going to do that. If you're not sure how to make color slip, you can watch my video on my YouTube channel. I did a video not long ago on how to make slip and how to make color slip. Mine is pretty easy because I already have slip casting slip, which is already the liquid clay. So all I did was measure it out and then add the mason stain into it. Okay, that's another one. I think with these long leaves I'm going to do darker green, but with this one here, which is a different shape, I'm going to do a different color here. This is with 1% sea green mason stain, so I need to mix it up first. The reason why I have to mix it up because it settles, because this is basically liquid clay, so the clay particle does settle onto the bottom if you haven't used it in a while. So I need to mix it up really well. Make sure that the clay particles and the mason stain are mixed together before I brush it on. Okay. And with mason stain, after Bisque firing, the color will show up a little bit, but maybe not as much as after glaze firing. So I want to just put on really thin coat on this one because there are some pattern on the leaves, so I don't want to cover that up. And I need to turn it and do the back as well. I need to turn this leaf like that. Okay. So for the back, I can put on a heavier coat if I want. But I mean, it's the back of the leaf, nobody's gonna see it. So, and with color slip, I don't have to put on clear glaze if I don't want to because it already has pigment. But then there is a color difference with whether you put on clear or not clear. I will show you the color. I have to test out just a minute. So here are the slip color. I have 3 different strengths for each color. So 1%, 5%, and 10%. Earlier for the leaves, I used sea green and forest green. So for the flowers, I'm going to use the red, yellow, coral, and orange. I want to quickly show you guys. These came out from the Bisque firing. And this is how I fire. I have a tray here, and then I just put all the pieces on the tray, so that will be easier for me to just take the whole tray out. So this, I put on the color slip and I fire it like this, touching the Bisque tray because the slip is basically clay, so it won't stick to the tray. And that's how it looks like after Bisque firing. You can see the color is very faint and pastel colored because when I do the Bisque firing, it is at 06. So it's a very low temperature. So I'm not going to put any clear or gloss glazes on it because if I do put on, let's say right here, the clear glaze on here, and I fire like this, touching the tray, it will stick onto the tray after glaze firing. So I'm not going to put on any glaze for these guys. I'm just going to put this whole tray back into the glaze firing and fire it to 06 so that the color will darken a little bit. But otherwise, I won't be having any clear surface. And after glaze firing, my plan is to put on to a little vase like these guys here, like so. I'll make another update video on how I plan on putting these onto my vase. So it will look somewhat like that. So I just unload the glaze kiln, and so these flowers have been through cone 6 firing, and I want to show you guys the results. There's definitely a change in color after going through cone 6. The colors are definitely darker. It feels a little bit rough, I guess, on the surface because it's just clay. There's no glaze, no gloss glaze on the surface. And so my idea is, so I've got the vases here. I will put a little bit of putty here so that the flowers can stay in there. So the flower will go like this. Some leaves, like so. So I'll put some putty, and then so that it will stay put on the vase. And some more. Do some mix and matching with the flowers and the leaves, just so that I get a good mix of colors. So that's what it looks like. I think these would be great gifts for Valentine's Day or Mother's Day. So I will unload the kiln and show you guys the flowers. So these are some of the flowers. It turned out really well. I added a clear gloss on the top of the colored slip. So that's it for today's tutorial. Thank you everyone for watching. See you guys next time. Bye bye.